Welcome to the Dan Casper Show podcast, your chance to catch the full show anytime, anywhere. If you missed it live on the radio, no worries. We've got you covered with all the sports talk, opinions, interviews, and conversations from the show. From the Packers to the Brewers to the biggest stories in sports and around Wisconsin, it's all right here. This is the Dan Casper Show podcast. All right, second hour, kick it off right now. Richie, if you're still tuning in, Surveyor Sam needs to know if you're going to be golfing in the Casper Classic. So just passing along that message. So, Richie, actually embarking on 2 World Cup games. Sweet. Nice. That should be cool. That is, again, I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but I would like to experience a World Cup atmosphere, environment. I'd like to do that. I'm pretty open to a lot of different sports and experiencing that environment. So, but yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Good for you, Richie. Good for you and taking the kiddo. That should be a good memory. That's awesome. All right, coming up. Well, first of all, Wednesday. What if Wednesday? Give me a. You guys have been great for the last couple weeks. Give me a nice what if scenario. All right, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if this move was made? What if this game was won or lost? How would history be different in sports? So you can send those on over. Hit us up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Or, again, you can hit us up on the Section 105 chat room on the video stream. It is also a, what are we doing here Wednesday? Like, maybe you are, what are we doing here trading Giannis? What are we doing here, with, I don't know, something. Like, what best ones? All right, send me the best one. Send me your best ones, and I'll read up on the air if you got a good one. Okay? So we'll get to those throughout. We spent the first hour talking some Bucks and draft picks. If you want to chime in on your thoughts, your take on the 2 new picks for the Bucks from last night with the 10th overall pick, the Bucks went with a guard. Braden Burries from Arizona. And with the 13th overall pick that they are getting from the Miami Heat, Nate Amons from Tennessee. He was the guy that has probably been mocked the most to Milwaukee since they figured out the draft lottery order. So Bucks getting a guard and a wing from last night's draft. They do not have a second-round pick as of now for tonight's draft. If you're a Timberwolves fan, you got a couple picks tonight, but last night they selected Joshua Jefferson with the 20th overall pick, forward Joshua Jefferson. So we'll talk some more hoops to talk a little bit more about the picks from last night a little bit later on. But Brewers-wise, it was another dominating pitching performance from the Brewers. Brandon Sproat was awesome. 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, 10 Ks to pick up his second win on the season. Bullpen shut it down after that, too. The Reds only 2 hits last night. Brewers only had 5 hits, so, we've had 2 games now where there hasn't been a lot of offensive production. Was it the 4th inning that the Brewers did have the bases loaded with 1 out and they didn't score anything? But luckily they were able to add a run in the top of the 6th and then an insurance run into the top of the 8th. To secure the victory last night to get at least a series win, and they will go for the sweep tonight. First pitch, 6:10. Coverage begins 35 minutes prior. You can listen to that game on the radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Starting for the Brewers tonight, it's going to be Shane Drowan. And Shane Drowan's coming off of a no decision against Cleveland back on the 18th, where he threw 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 3 Ks. Shane Drowan so far, since he's been essentially moved from the pen to the starting role, but in the month of June, where he has started 4 games already this month, he is 1-1 with a 4.43 ERA. And if we look at it from his starting numbers, his last game against Cleveland was probably his best start. he didn't start a game in the month of May, and he was really good, 1-0 with a 1.72 ERA. Started that one game in April 8th, and 2 2/3 and 3 earned runs and 63 pitches. But he's coming off of probably, numbers-wise, his best. I mean, the Giants game on the first, he went 4 innings and 2 earned runs and had 5 strikeouts in that. But, yeah, I'd say he's coming off his best start statistically. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts. Still issued 3 walks, though. So we talk about Brandon Sproat and then, Shane Drone. I think the 2 biggest things, we know those 2 have talent. Maybe Shane Drone's better coming out of the pen. Maybe a little bit more up in the air right now with Sproat. But can they stack that success? We've seen Shane Drone stack that success as a bullpen guy coming out of the pen and having multiple games, back-to-back games where he has been awesome and electric. I mean, that Cubs game in the middle of May, he didn't start it, but he went 4 1/3. Gave up just 4 hits, no earned runs, struck out 5. Didn't issue a single walk. But from a starting perspective, and let's face it too, Brewers are maybe asking him to do some tough things as a young pitcher. Starter, bullpen. He had success as a bullpen guy, long relief guy in the month of May. Injuries have called him to duty to be a starter. It's a different process. It's a different way to preparation. And when guys start to get healthy, maybe when Logan Henderson comes back, they're going to ask Shane Drone to go back to the bullpen. And, I mean, Brewers have asked pitchers to do this a lot, especially younger pitchers. Woodruff was the same. Corbin Burns was the same. Jacob Mizorowski did it last year, too. But I think now with Shane Drone, you're just looking from a starting perspective again, can he put together back-to-back or back-to-back good, solid, quality starts? He's got the talent. He's got great talent. Is it starter-worthy talent? Can he go out there tonight and kind of continue this bar that Brandon Woodruff and Brandon Sproat have? Well, they set it pretty high with their pitching performances these last 2 games. It's been very high. So, Shane Drone, it's going to be a tough ask. But Brewers, if they win tonight, they'll complete the sweep. They're going up against Lauder on the other mound, a right-handed pitcher who is 3-4. Not a ton of experience with some of these Brewers hitters. You're talking 1 or 2 ABs. So nothing really there. But Rhett Lauder, he is 3-4 in 11 games started this year with a 4.82 ERA. He's coming off of a loss against the Yankees back on the 19th, where he went 5 1/3 and gave up 4 earned runs. If we kind of break it down here a little bit more, in the month of June so far in 3 games, 0-1 with a 3.21 ERA. But his 2 previous starts in the month of June were solid. Against the Diamondbacks on the 13th, he went 5 2/3, gave up just 1 earned run, struck out 6. Against St. Louis, he only went 3 innings, but he gave up just 1 hit, struck out 4, but issued 5 walks. There have been a couple of times this season he's had some issues with walks. Back on May 2nd, that was a really bad performance. Got the start, but he only lasted an inning and a third against the Pirates. He gave up 8 earned runs and 4 walks. Yeesh. Yikes. So I think this is a guy, if you could get at him early, if you could put up a crooked number early, that's the game plan. But from what we've seen so far in these first 2 games of this Red Series, we know runs are hard to come by. Offense hasn't been easy. But it feels like maybe this third game, because how many times have we seen that in baseball? Where then it's just like the complete opposite from the first couple games. Great pitching, not a lot of offense, and then you get to the series finale and it does like a 180. Would it surprise anybody today if it's like an 8-6 game? Wouldn't surprise me. Not at all. It's one of those you just kind of chuckle at a little bit. Brewers then will have the off day tomorrow to prepare for their series against the Chicago Cubs. So don't want to look too far ahead because let's focus on getting this win and this series win. If the Brewers do win tonight, they will be 20 games above 500. 20 games above 500. Not quite to the 50% mark, halfway mark of this season. That'll be accomplished after this 3-game series against the Cubbies. So, way preview. Get your homework assignment or get your planners out. Monday morning, we'll definitely be talking a little bit about some first quarter grades or second quarter grades, first half grades when it comes to the Brew Crew. So, MLB.com and their latest Cy Young watch as we approach the halfway mark here for the Brewers. A new frontrunner emerges in the National League, and it should not surprise Brewers fans, but it is Jacob Misiorowski. He received 153 total vote points, 29 first place votes. Says while Misiorowski has been wowing all year long with a record-setting heat, he's really taken his Cy Young case to the next level as of late. The right-hander posted a .17 ERA from May 1st through June 12th, culminating with a 15-strikeout, one-hit masterpiece against the Phillies. That's the lowest ERA in an 8-start span, excluding openers, since earned runs became official in 1913. Overall, he leads Major League Baseball in ERA, strikeouts, and whip, and opponent's batting average, which is 146. And it's by a wide margin. So he got 29 of these voters from MLB.com for Cy Young. Next up is Sanchez, who got 2 first-place votes. Then Paul Skeens, then Shohei Ohtani, then Chase Burns. Kyle Harrison did get some votes, too. He was in the category of others receiving votes. All right, we'll talk some more Brewers. Kyle Pitts, though, we're going to talk a little football. Kyle Pitts signed a contract for the Atlanta Falcons. Why does that matter? Well, it matters potentially in terms of what Tucker Kraft could be getting. We'll break that down coming up after these quick words. Summer is here, and that means it is the perfect time to give your home or your space a fresh new look with the help from Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. Whether you are updating a family room, finishing a basement, maybe for your own man cave, refreshing a bedroom, or finally tackling that remodeling project that you've been putting off, Carpet City Flooring Center has the flooring options you are looking for, from beautiful luxury vinyl planks like Ridge & Max flooring, tile, carpet, and more. You'll find quality products and expert guidance every single step of the way. Their experienced team will help you find the right floor to fit your lifestyle, your style in your home, and your budget. With professional installation available, your project can be completed quickly and correctly. Make this summer the summer you transform your home or your space. Stop on in to Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire today and discover why so many area homeowners trust Carpet City Flooring Center for all of their flooring needs. Carpet City Flooring Center, helping you love where you live. I've got a few of you with your Wednesday what ifs. I'll get to those coming up here in just a little bit. Also, we do have a couple of what are we doing here too. So keep those coming. Hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, or you can chime in on the Section 105 chat on the video stream, where it looks like we've got a few on there too. Let's switch gears here. We'll get back to some more hoops and baseball talk, but we're going to switch gears and talk a little football. Yesterday, Kyle Pitts signing a new contract, the biggest 3-year deal in NFL history. Why does that matter? Well, there's another tight end that is potentially looking for a new contract, and that is one Tucker Kraft. So let's talk a little Tucker Kraft, talk a little football here this morning with Joe. And And Joe, when you see that Kyle Pitts contract and such, do you think Tucker Kraft is a pretty happy man this morning?
Yeah, whenever the bar gets reset from a positional standpoint, it's always the guy next in line is the one that really benefits from that. And look, I'm hearing that projections for Tucker Kraft could be in the range of 4 years, $60 million. Looking at 4 years to $72 million. So you're looking really at probably a $15 to $18 million extension. And the thing with the Packers to remember, and this goes way back, this is, Andrew Brandt types of legacy here, that Green Bay does not do guarantees. And again, they've done it with signing bonuses. Of course, that is the way to get around that, where you don't want to guarantee a lot of the contract. But, for Tucker Kraft, again, it looks like, in my opinion, it'll be around that $15 to $18 million a year, but it depends on how it's structured and how much of that is signing bonus. And again, whenever you're sitting around and the next guy gets his contract, yeah, you're a happy man because the bar has now been reset. And again, where does Tucker Kraft fall into that? I think he jumps into probably that top 5 range as far as tight end pay. And, we as Packer fans probably value Tucker Kraft or look at him more importantly than casual fans around the league or even some of the talking heads around the league. And so I think he makes this offense go. I think most Packer fans believe that he's the linchpin of this offense. But, Tucker Kraft is going to get paid. Green Bay is still in a very, very good position from a salary cap standpoint. You're looking at somewhere between $20 and $25 million of cap space still left this year. And right now, again, with that kind of flexibility this year, because right now Tucker Kraft's cap number is just under $4 million. So you could actually, a lot of times you see where cap numbers go down when you sign that extension. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Green Bay structure this because of the fact that they've got a lot of cap room this year, that Green Bay structures this a little bit more front-loaded than a typical contract. But the Packers have the cap room to get him done. The Packers have the cap room to get Devontae Wyatt done. Now, he's a guy that flips his salary cap number because he's playing on that fifth year escalator for first-round draft choices is just under $13 million. And so you could see Kraft getting the extension and his cap number going up, Devontae Wyatt getting his extension, his cap number going down. And I would expect both of those deals get done sometime still in the summer.
So we know offensive teams like to, go make the offense go through a guy, or they build their offense around a particular player in the passing game. Between Tucker Kraft and Christian Watson, who should be the primary target, or who should Matt LaFleur build his offense around?
I think it starts with Kraft, and it's almost a 1A and 1B situation, because what Christian Watson does is he takes the cap off the defense. He puts guys into a situation where everything opens up underneath. And so, is it a chicken and the egg where Christian Watson takes the top off the defense to allow someone like a Tucker Kraft or Matthew Golden or Jaden Reed to work underneath? But then you've got, okay, when Christian Watson is going deep and you want to take some deep shots, then you've got your safety blanket, your security blanket, if you will. And so I think it's a 1A and 1B. I would start with Tucker Kraft, but I think it's really, really close as far as who really drives this offense and who really is the guy from a defensive coordinator standpoint that you say, we have to account for him. And so, again, they both serve two different purposes, but when integrated, very, very key to this offense. Again, one taking that top off, the other being the security blanket, and also the yards after catch guy. Because we've seen it with Tucker Kraft now. The ability to find space and then create more space after the catch. I think it's just really impressive what he's done in his short career in the NFL from a yards after catch standpoint. So great question. I think it's a 1A, 1B, but I would still start with Tucker Kraft.
I had recently seen a post, I think it was on NFL.com, I could be wrong, but it said, 4 teams that maybe kind of like 4 teams that got worse or a little bit down after the offseason, and they put the Packers in there because as they listed, Quay Walker gone. I mean, some of the other, Romeo Doubs is gone, but I don't feel like they factored a lot of the other stuff like, they got extensions done for Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. It was more of a post about who had like some of the worst off seasons, and Green Bay was a top 4 team. Would you buy that? I mean, I feel like that's a little harsh. It almost screams of like they don't really pay attention to Green Bay football or really paid attention to what actually happened this offseason.
Yeah, I'm selling on that. I'm not buying because yeah, when you're at that point where you don't make the splash moves, and the splash moves really are those free agent signings. And I'll say, a couple of years ago, Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs, those are splash moves. Those make the headlines. When you re-sign your own, and you're at that point where you're like, you know what, we're going to build ancillary and supplementary types of players here. They don't make the splash. They don't make the headlines. And so, yeah, I think what Green Bay has done this offseason is fantastic. And you're also looking at guys and you're saying, okay, we're expecting him to take a jump. And when you see those types of articles or those types of posts about who had the best or worst offseason, they don't take into consideration growth from young players. And so it's a little bit of a misguided read, because of the fact that they're looking for the splash headlines, the splash signings, and a lot of times the re-signings go unnoticed in those types of situations. I personally really, really like what Green Bay has done this offseason. You and I went into this offseason talking about the fact that now you've got to get supplementary players. Now you've got to get some veterans in there. Now you've got to get some guys maybe on the defensive side of the ball that can be leaders in the locker room. And I think Green Bay has gone out and done that. But is it the type of moves that are going to make the splash headlines? No, but it's the type of moves that can take you from a first or second round exit in the playoffs to a Super Bowl contender. And again, I really like what Green Bay has done. I get it why that article said that or that post said that, but still for me, I really, really like what Green Bay did. I also like what they did in the draft. I think, again, they've got a couple of guys, Jagger Burton, for one, and obviously the first-round pick, Brandon Cisse. And so, you've got some guys that I think are going to be players this year. Another move, just as a side note, a guy like a Sky Moore, that is not a move that gets you headlines. That is not a move that puts you up in the best off seasons. But that's a move that could be a difference maker. And I go back, obviously, when Green Bay won the Super Bowl in 1997. If it's not for Desmond Howard, I don't think Green Bay wins that Super Bowl. I don't know if Green Bay's in a position to be in that Super Bowl, even though they had explosive offense and defense that year. That's the kind of move that goes under the radar, that doesn't get you the posts or the clicks in the offseason, but it gets you a Super Bowl ring.
What about, I feel like one guy, too, that maybe we're not talking a lot about, maybe just as of late here, but do you feel Zaire Franklin, how big of an upgrade, is he an upgrade over Quay Walker? What's your expectations for him heading into this season?
The fact that he's already been anointed the green dot, and the fact that when Micah Parsons speaks of accountability and player accountability, and not coaches' accountability, but players, and he talks about Xavier and Jordan and Zaire. He talks about Zaire Franklin as a guy that's going to be counted on not only on the field, but I think in the locker room. And I think Quay Walker, in my opinion, fantastic athlete. Was he miscast? Maybe. We'll see what he does with the Raiders. But I don't think Quay Walker was a leader. I don't think he was a guy that other players rallied around. I don't think he was a guy that necessarily held his teammates accountable. So I look at Zaire Franklin as a guy that's not only, if he's even par with Quay Walker, but makes a difference in the locker room, that's a huge upgrade then. And I think Green Bay was looking this offseason to get guys in there that could be leaders in the locker room and also play the spot on the field and play the position on the field. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an upgrade because I think he's going to make a difference on the sidelines. I think he's going to make a difference in the locker room, and I never saw Quay Walker do that. Matter of fact, looking back, Quay Walker's first couple of years in the league, a lot of immaturity. So I never saw him as a leader. I see, at least on paper and at least what Zaire Franklin is saying and other players are saying about him, I'm seeing the ability to play that leadership role. So I think Zaire Franklin is going to be very, very critically important, not only on the field but off.
Of the guys entering their third year, Edrin Cooper, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, and such, who do you think or who are you maybe most excited? Let's phrase it that way. Who are you most excited about to see maybe make another jump into year three?
You know what? It's going to be Javon Bullard. I think we've seen Evan Williams and we've seen what he can do, and obviously Coop. Not only is he going to be a big time player playing that traditional inside backer position, but also you're seeing him getting some reps on the edge. So I think you're going to see him take that next step. I am most excited about Javon Bullard. I think you're just seeing an arc of a player going from developmental and potential to realizing that potential and being the player that he could be. And so I'm most excited about him. And again, that's the whole juggling of the salary cap, because you've got guys that you've got to look at now and say, okay, who's the next guy up to get paid? And who's the next guy up to get that extension? And you mentioned three guys right there from that class that all three, in my opinion, are critical to Green Bay. And it's going to be hard to sign all three of them to those extensions. And so, again, Russ Ball has his work cut out for him. Real quick, Dan, I want to jump tracks for just a moment with you, because I wanted to ask you this, because obviously the big news this week was Giannis. And I want to ask you, as a fan, as a media person, you've now been around the Brett Favre departure. You've been around the Aaron Rodgers departure. You've been around now the Giannis departure. I had Paul Molitor as one of my guys that I went through that was really hard for me. I was very, very young, but I still remember the Lou Alcindor departure. So for you, though, between Rodgers, Favre, and Giannis, which one is the hardest or was the hardest to take?
For me personally, it was probably Favre, and probably for a few reasons. One, wasn't expected. Like for Rodgers, we kind of knew it was potentially, coming and such. And I know Favre, we had Rodgers kind of waiting in the wing, but we were coming off of an NFC Championship game, and it just kind of felt like, there's no way he's going to retire this year and come back. And it was retirement compared to a trade. Giannis, we had been hearing about potentially, traded for years. And I don't know. And I think part of that is social media, just the instant, news cycle, whereas Favre, Facebook, and was just kind of in its infancy, and MySpace was around. It was just, you still had to watch TV or listen to the radio for the latest updates. And I just remember following the Favre thing throughout the whole thing. And I always tell this story, like the way I found out Favre, I still remember the date, March 4th, 2008. I was in college, and my roommate, I had a late class, and he woke me up, and all he said was, turn on the TV, and he walked out. And I turned the TV on. It was Favre, and I walked down the stairs. And my other roommate, my best friend Jake, walks in. We didn't even say a word, Joe. We just hugged. We just hugged, and I wore my Favre jersey to class. I had a professor that day say, we're watching Favre's press conference in a couple days instead of having class. So honestly, it was probably the Favre one, and maybe that's because that was my first one that I went through that hits the most. And maybe I was just kind of better prepared for the Rodgers and Giannis one because it was getting talked about more.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And again, for me, and I think it's also where you are in your stage of life. For me, the Lou Alcindor one, I was really young, almost too young to really grasp what was going on at that point. But for me, it was really Molitor. And I think it's, again, that player who you grew up with. Don't get me wrong, Favre stung, Rodgers stung, and of course this week, as a Bucs fan, I didn't want to see it. As a Bucs, as a practical and logical Bucs follower, it had to happen. It absolutely had to happen. And so I think for me it was Molitor, but again, that next generation now, those that didn't see or weren't a big fan or weren't old enough to really take it all in and soak it all in when Rodgers won that Super Bowl. You've got, and again, your son has experienced the NBA championship,
Mm-hmm.
and from the Milwaukee Bucks. And so it just hit me this week as far as I was when the Giannis news broke. I said, all right, who in my mind was the hardest one? And again, I went through the 5, and I dismissed Alcindor right away, a little bit too young to really grasp what was happening. I'm kind of with you on the Rodgers thing and the Giannis thing because you kind of expected it. Favre, it seemed like it was tumultuous in the offseason. For me, and I remember this distinctly, and I can't remember the exact year that Molitor was deemed expendable by former GM Sal Bando at the time, but I actually got on a sports talk show that Sal Bando was on, and I asked him directly. I said, explain to me your rationale, and of course, not understanding the financial ramifications, but explain to me your rationale in letting Paul Molitor go. And he Sal Bando tried to play the cliche game, but he said, we have a lot of other players, you got to make decisions for the health of the franchise, blah, 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 blah. And I said, but when you look at a batting order, the difference Paul Molitor made not only to the game or around him, but to the other players, because you pitch around him, you do this. And Sal just kind of blew me off at that point. But for me, it was definitely Paul Molitor. But I wanted to get your take on it. You and I have an interesting perspective because of the generational difference that you and I have. And again, it was like, I got to ask Dan this question. With the Giannis news hitting, which one hit the most? But for you, it's Favre.
Yeah, for me, I think just from a pure emotional standpoint, it was probably Favre, and I think part of it too was that's all I knew from a Packers quarterback perspective. From a young kid, I was born in '86, and when I first started, my first games that I could remember watching Packers, it was Favre at quarterback all the way through when I was a senior in college. So I mean, that was kind of the end of an era, end of a chapter, and that's probably, that would have to be the one, because I think I was just immune to maybe after that with the Rodgers one and Giannis. I would say an honorable mention for me, though, would be Shaq, because I was such a huge Orlando Magic fan because of Shaq. And then when he left, it was because I had a Shaq Orlando themed birthday party, and then he went to the Lakers the next day. So that one.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
I remember sitting on the stairs outside of my house in Medford listening to the radio, and that's when it was announced that he was going to the Lakers. I'm like, are you flipping kidding me? I just had a birthday cake with Shaq on there, so yeah.
An Orlando Magic Shaq, not just Shaq, but an Orlando Magic Shaq.
Yep. So.
Oh man. Well, I tell you what, and again, flipping this back over and getting back to football, when you look at it in the rear view mirror, you say to yourself, I think the Favre move, I think the franchise was smart, obviously, to move on to Rodgers at that point. I think the franchise was smart to move on with Rodgers and moving on to Love. And again, you almost look at, when's the right time to make a move like this? And looking at what the Bucks got this week from the Miami Heat, you ask yourself, should they have made this move a year earlier and not try to go in one more year and go after Miles Turner and have the Damian Lillard, cut and keep and extend and all that kind of stuff? So you ask yourself, was it almost a year too late? So knowing when to move on, knowing when to take that next step in your franchise, I think that's a really hard step to take. And again, we've got the 2020 ability right now, looking back at least at the Packers situation. And I think, at least I look at it and say, I think looking back, I think the franchise moved on from Hall of Fame players, iconic players, best players in franchise history consideration. I think with Giannis, we can say that unequivocally. But with Favre and Rodgers, there's a lot of guys up for that debate. But knowing when to pull that trigger, that's got to be a hard move. But it's just an interesting thing when you see something happen in another sport, then you say, all right, which one hurt the most? And I wanted to get your take on it. So I appreciate you sharing this morning. Really
quick, since it is a What If Wednesday, let's go to that Favre thing. What if he doesn't retire and says he's coming back? Do they trade Rodgers or do they still trade Favre? How do you think that changes?
You know what? I think if Favre wouldn't have gone, if he wouldn't have vacillated so much, and if he was just, if the what if is Favre never, ever, ever, vacillated and never talked retirement, yeah, I think you keep Favre and you trade Rodgers. But it had happened multiple off seasons where he started hinting around at that retirement. And so my what if goes to more that he was never in doubt, that there was never a doubt that Brett Favre comes back. I think if he was 100% on board and never giving those hints and being a little nondescript about his intentions, I think Green Bay trades Rodgers at that point. Matter of fact, there are reports out there that Rodgers there were trade talks with the Raiders at some point and some other teams at that point. So I think the what if there is, what if Brett Favre never vacillates and stays committed to playing year in, year out? I think Aaron Rodgers gets traded.
Yeah, I agree too. All right, Joe. Hey, thanks for the conversation this morning. Enjoy the rest of the week, sir, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
All right, Dan. Love it. And this is one of those weeks as a sports fan where you take the good with the bad, man. And Giannis brought a championship to Milwaukee, and we'll always appreciate that. And that's the one thing the three of them do have, and Alcindor, is they all brought championships to the state of Wisconsin. So appreciative, but moving on and looking forward, brother.
Yeah, I agree. All right, dude. We'll catch up soon, okay?
All right. Take care, Dan.
You got it. There you go. There's Joe DeGuano joining us here this morning. Hey, I'll throw it out to the rest of you of the – because I know of somebody, a friend of mine, Tim, I believe. He's now a Cardinals fan. But, Tim, if you're listening, maybe you could correct me if I get this wrong. But I believe, Tim, because I always ask him, why are you a Cardinals fan? And it was because of the Paul Molitor decision. Like, he was so upset with the Brewers with the Paul Molitor decision. Essentially, he switched to allegiances. So, okay, I'll throw that question out to the rest of you. Which superstar player leaving your favorite team hurt the most? And it doesn't necessarily have to be Wisconsin. Maybe you were a fan of a different team that's outside of Wisconsin. Which one hurt the most, or which one felt the weirdest, or you know what I mean? Hit me up. All right, we got to take a quick break. We're running a little bit behind, so we gotta pay some bills. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes.